I'm just curious, as you're getting out on the bus and traveling around the country, we've all read the headlines, seen the stats. You referenced that all of the money is going to white guys. As you're out in the country, are you seeing different founders that represent more of the country coming to your events, or are you seeing more of that? And if not, what more can we do?
It's getting a little bit better, but there's a lot more we can do. I think in different cities, I think there are some cities that really made a focus. I remember Atlanta and New Orleans, the last two stops we did on this last tour. Raleigh-Durham as well. The idea of more inclusive entrepreneurship, leveling the playing field, figuring out ways to provide more access to capital, but also provide more mentoring and support networks. There really was a genuine sense that if the community would benefit, the economy would benefit if we figured out a way to include everybody. And they had different programs, some accelerators, other programs that really were trying to fuel that. And it was like a priority. You could tell it wasn't just like a press release. It was a priority, and there were people kind of working on that. I think having different examples of that, kind of model homes that other communities can look at and point to and say, well, we should do more of that, I think is important. At a national level, it goes back to what I said earlier. Crowdfunding is very interesting because I think the data right now is that venture capital, 85% goes to men, something like that. Crowdfunding platforms, which so far are more project-related, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, it's more like 50-50, which says to me that if it's about the idea, they tend to get more equally funded. If it's about the person and the networks they have, less so. And that's not just true with women, it's African Americans, Latinos. There clearly is a divide and opportunity gap in terms of access to capital, which is a big part of getting started or scaling your company. And so figuring out ways to level that playing field so other places other than California, New York, Massachusetts, as well as other people have a shot, I think results in more things being successful. Overall, the economy will grow faster. Overall, more jobs will be created. And overall, more of those communities will be stronger. So I'm encouraged. I think the things I'm hearing, I didn't hear 5 years ago. It feels like it's more of a priority, but I wouldn't be Pollyannish. There's a lot of work to be done, to take the idea and turn it into action. Thomas Edison famously said 100 years ago, I think he's one of America's greatest entrepreneurs and innovators, vision without execution is hallucination. So the idea is great, but you got to execute, including in the space of inclusive entrepreneurship.
What are you finding? I mean, in terms of the opportunity for people outside the traditional elites?
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout the tech community, I think there's some companies that are really doing this, like companies, like AT&T. I know they've done this is a priority for the company. They've done a lot of work in this space. And I think, we work with a lot of partners at Mobile Future, a group called Digital Undivided that focuses on Black women entrepreneurs and helping them get started. They have a project they're calling Project Diane, after Diane Nash, one of the women in the civil rights movement who never gets any of the press or any of the attention, kind of focusing on how to get more women, more people of color to the table. And I think in my travels where I'm around, it's often the rooms that I'm in typically don't reflect the country, and I think that's challenging as a woman. And we've seen a lot of stats actually showing that companies with women in their leadership teams actually are more successful. So I think it's something that I'm glad that you're focusing on, and I think it's important that.
Why is the problem so bad in Silicon Valley in particular, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think that you probably would have a better answer to this, but my guess is that, we just kind of gravitate to who we know. And, we saw a couple of years ago where I think it was Facebook maybe they didn't have any women on their board. And one of my advisors is an entrepreneur who started an IPTV company in an unusual place in Montana. She's very successful, and I get the phone call from her, fuming, like if they had just reached out to a woman, I could have given them 20 amazing, talented people that could have gone on. So I think a lot of it is the network and building kind of broader fabrics. And
I think that's true. And I remember one of the debates that Romney was criticized for calling it, I think, a binder full of women, which is not the most perfect way to craft it, but his point was correct. How do you, when you're making decisions around whether it be boards or other kind of thing, how do you make sure you have a broad, kind of look at things and kind of, force the process. Even on this last Rise Rest, it's a priority for us, so we wanted to make sure that there was broad representation. But we were delighted, and I think 2 of the last 4 cities, it was African American women who won. It wasn't that we said, let's pick an African American or pick a woman. We wanted to make sure that they were represented on the stage, and we were hopeful that some of the winners would show that diversity, show that inclusiveness. But they were kick-ass entrepreneurs. They were the best on the stage, and they won for that reason. And seeing that, and so sometimes surprises people and then leads to other things. We partnered with this Rise of Rest initiative with Google 2 years in a row. They have a Google for Entrepreneurs initiative, have different activities in different cities. I think last year was 7 cities, this year was 8 cities. Brought entrepreneurs from each of those cities to Silicon Valley to present to investors in Silicon Valley. And this year the winner was a woman from Durham, North Carolina. So you just got to take proactive steps. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think at least it's part of the conversation, including in Silicon Valley. We're kind of critical of Silicon Valley, but I think there are a lot of people there who recognize that there's some things that need to change, and they're focusing on trying to make that change.